We're going to talk about ag exports in the state of Nevada and exports in total also, and the potential impacts of these trade wars may have on exports in the state of Nevada and ag exports specifically, and correspondingly their spillover effects to the state economy and some selected county economies in the state of Nevada.
Okay, so this is pretty similar to what we talked about before.
A little bit, yeah, except we got a little bit more numbers, but also a little more intense on what are the exports and those things.
Okay, so what are the exports?
Well, basically what we're worried about exports, let me back up a little bit. The exports, one we're worried about is by a theory in economics called export base, is that firms that sell outside bring money into the local economy that generates future economic growth. And many of us, this is ag, or you think about the natural resource counties of Elko, Humboldt. Whenever there's a change in gold sales or agriculture sales, the economy kind of goes south. Same thing here we're talking about. Here in Washoe County or Clark County, the export sales are casinos. Usually with export sales, you sell the product and you bring the money in. Here, our guys come here to the casinos, we turn them upside down, shake them, and they spend their monies here. But however, they're outside folks. But the main export sales for commodities that we have for the state as a whole, the number one that considers about 52% is gold. And as we know, our gold manufacturing mining is big. And the big buyer of gold is Switzerland. And, with banks and also jewelry and all that. Gaming operations are number two. Think of IGT, those kinds of things. And also in there is copper, which is a big. And then lower down is ag, some of our ag exports, which we'll talk about a little bit. But those are main ones. Basically, the Nevada, the top 10 of the exporters export about 75% of all sales. One of the growing exports is lithium. We have lithium pools in Esmeralda, looks like in Kings Mountain in Humboldt County. There may be some expansions there. That's going to be lithium, and so that's where it's going to the batteries. What we're trying to do with the Governor's Office of Economic is develop a linkage where we make refining lithium, we send everything to China. So maybe in Nevada, we could do that and become like that is big.
And the reason for the increase in exports of lithium is primarily the batteries?
True.
And that's for things like cell phones,
cars. It is the petroleum of solar and all this, because if you have solar, you generate solar during the daytime. You and I come home at night, want to turn on our lights. Well, we better have batteries. And so I know a lot of people want to look at the electric cars and all. I kind of like Bill Gates did not build computers. He built the fuel, which was the programming. I like this lithium idea. And China has developed, takes our raw material and brings it back to us. Well, if we could make Nevada where you processing and making iodes and everything here, that'd be a big thing. And any of the clean energy, I know there's clean energy. The state is going to have a 50% mandate. There's some clean energy initiatives going on with national government. Lithium is needed. It's kind of like we're sitting on an oil reserve here with this, and so potentially that'll be big. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about importance of agriculture and its exports, which we're talking about. It's still a very big thing. And the main thing is that you can only expand domestic consumption a little bit. When I was getting my master's at Texas Tech, we had a very famous ag economist who did policy, Willard Williams. He always talked about in the Eisenhower administration, we had a glut of milk. And so everybody wants to say, let's drink an extra glass of milk. Well, people just don't drink an extra glass of milk. You hope to sell that milk over in the foreign exchanges, foreign areas. That's where we did that. When I was at Oklahoma State, when I was getting my doctorate, boy, the Soviet wheat deals brought prosperity. So those are the main things that we have. So during 2017, U.S. exported about $130 billion to China. basically getting our exports. So it's been a very big, what we call net balance of payments for us. China is still a very big part. But like I said, it's very big for us, and we're getting in more foreign countries, as even the emerging nations, as they become richer, their consumption of food changes, and so they will be getting that. Agriculture has been having, one of the things we're doing, we're having a conference in April on agriculture, livestock, and dairy, mainly because the net farm income has really declined in the U.S. And you read about dairies having trouble in the state of Nevada. It's declined a lot. Well, one of the things that we do with struggling is that we can make sales to foreign countries. And when those trades are going good, not only does the ag sector, but the ag business sector is also impacted. It's not coincidence that if you look at Wall Street, the shares of stock for John Deere and Ciba-Geigy and some of them are always going up as ag goes up, because it's a drive demand. As ag has more money, they will purchase more of these goods. So it's important. It's not only within agriculture, but it's within the whole ag business sector that export sales are very important.
Tom, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
So we've often heard, or at least I've heard over the years, that mining is kind of boom bust.
Boom bust,
up
yes.
and down,
right.
Whereas ag in Nevada is more consistent.
Well, ag does flow around. Like I said, in 2014 we had a highest net income of about $294 million. It dropped 96% in 2017. But what ag producers do different from mining is their expenditures stay pretty much the same. Ag people in the sector, what they will do, they'll take lower net returns. It's boom bust in the mines. Prices go up, prices go down, but also the mines play out. Agriculture, their net incomes will be volatile, but their purchases, their total purchases, what they expend, and which has downward linkages to ag suppliers, they stay fairly constant. They will wobble as the price decreases. They may not buy as much fixed assets like a John Deere tractor, but when the years are good, they buy those things. But those are the main things. Yeah, it's not as the whole sector is volatile. You'll see the net incomes be volatile, but that's only part of the picture. We're talking about tariffs in here, and what are those? Because that's getting a lot of play, and trade as always. And basically, a tariff is nothing but a duty. It's almost like a tax. It's really a tax that's placed on a good that you ship into to this economy. People do these things and they generate income, but they kind of sometimes are used to shield or protect a local area. Now, there's two types. There's the thing called an ad valorem tax, and that is like a percent that's added to the value of whatever's coming in. So if you have something like corn or whatever, they figure out what the value is and put like a 10% tax on it. That's a tariff. Others are things like a specific tax where you set a tax or on the amount that's going. It's kind of like the quantity coming in. So sometimes you want to do it as an ad valorem because prices, but sometimes it may be the quantity that you do. And so those are two different taxes, and they're talking about that, I know right now with the Trump administration, but they're also talking about restricting how much is coming in, that kind of stuff. Why you do taxes, tariffs, basically, is protecting the local economy. Sometimes countries, and this is what we worry about, China, they dump. In other words, they'll take and as a country, it's an old thing in competition. You may sell something at a lower price than your competitor and run them out of business, but a country can subsidize that business too. And so that's what we have, that dumping where we're looking at. That's something the World Trade Organization should be watching. If they're doing that, they should be fine. People also looking at helping local firms and also economies. The U.S., before the income tax, the national government got most of its revenue from tariffs and all that, as money came in. Those are generation. And also like raising, you have to be very cautious when President George W. Bush put a tariff on steel for 2 months. But heck, that increased the price of cars and everything. Well, that went away real quick. And so there's sometimes, as economists, we call unintended consequences that may happen. This is what we have to watch for.
Is that considered like a ripple effect type thing?
Yeah. This is housing. The trade war with Canada reduced a lot of the softwood. And if you talk to many people who are in construction, the price of houses have increased because wood has increased. And so that can happen too. They act as inputs. So in a way, that's why we want to have free markets. But you always want to guard against dumping. Just for agriculture now, from the censuses, 2017, they had about $133 million in it. And beef and veal accounted for about 25% of that. And there's another thing they call other plant products, was about 24%. Well, that's alfalfa hay. Alfalfa hay in the state of Nevada, there's two types of trade. There's foreign trade and domestic trade. We ship a lot of our alfalfa hay to California for people who are in the dairy business, because alfalfa hay has a very big, what they call total digestible nutrient, TDN. And so it's prized. But also people in Eureka also grow Timothy hay, which a lot of horse breeders and all them use. Then some of that alfalfa hay is also sent to China and Japan. But those are the biggest, they almost make 50% of our trade. The major counties from the 2012, we're going to be having a 2017 census come out almost any time, but it always takes a long time. Humboldt, Lyon, and Elko are our two major counties on agriculture exports, and they make up 48%. So whenever changes in exports trade will have in the state of Nevada will have huge impacts on Humboldt, Elko, and Lyon County. Now, Elko is primarily the livestock. Humboldt County has alfalfa hay and livestock and other. Lyon County has a lot what I call truck crops. They have onions, all those, if you go down Yarrington. So they're a big exporter of high value crops. I always kind of joke when this 2012, they come out with what's the highest valued county in agriculture crops. It's Monterey County in California, because they grow strawberries, they grow asparagus, all those high cost things, high yield numbers. So that impacts it too. Oh, basically, I looked at a 10% drop in exports, foreign exports, and what that would mean. For the state of Nevada, it have a direct effect of about 127 employees and a total of about 170. What that means is it's basically a 10%, but almost have like a 1% decrease in employment statewide. Well, statewide gets drowned out by Las Vegas and Reno. The impacts are big, but they also have some. It's drowned out whenever you do a state analysis. What we like to do is go back and look at places like Humboldt and all this. Well, Humboldt, a decrease will have about 19 people lose their jobs directly. This is 10%. Of course, you get bigger job numbers, and about 25 folks, or it's almost a 2% decrease in total employment in Humboldt County. It's much bigger because Humboldt is more linked to that than the other sectors. Lyon and Elko have similar numbers as we did for Humboldt. I won't go into that, but what happens statewide, the impact is going to be less because of it's being drowned out by the other sectors of Reno and Las Vegas. But we go to our natural resource counties like Elko, Lyon, and Humboldt. There are substantial impacts there, much bigger. So, and to round it up, what's happening is that the public needs to be aware of tariffs. Is that number one, tariffs do have an impact. We have to be cautious because planning. One of the things I worry about is you have a long-term relationship with governments on supplying them. I know in the Midwest, a lot of the soybean farmers have now been impacted because now Argentina has taken up the slack that when these tariffs or trade restrictions were set. Now,
it actually ruins competition a little bit.
Yeah, right. It's also, and what happens if you're somebody like China, you're going to say, "Oh, I can rely on Argentina, I can't on the U.S." That hurts. You know, that's where our problems come in. So it's one of those things that have a potentially. If there's a lot of impact with China with unfair trade practices and dumping and trade laws and patents, and hopefully we'll get through this. It'll be okay. I know there's better. Unfortunately, you kind of get every day you're going to get a change. They've made an agreement. We made agreement with Canada and Mexico, hopefully to open up trade again with that. Like I said, for housing, Canadian wood is used a lot, and so when those trade wars were on, that caused the cost of housing to go up. And one of our biggest problems we have in the U.S. is housing. So, and for agriculture, for many of our natural resource counties, that gold, lithium, copper, and agricultural products, those will impact those economies, and hopefully they have some trade agreements that'll lift and so have more freer trade. Also, I should say, a lot of us are looking at Wall Street right now. There's certain worry about some of the foreign countries having a recession. Okay, that'll loosen the demand, and that's what we worried about. That because with ag, a lot of our we produce so good is sending it out, and so those are the things.
Anything else you want to add on this topic?
No, just watch what's going on. The impacts kind of delayed right now because there's negotiations going on. Full scale impacts if you look at Nebraska and those places we grow soybeans, there's kind of an untold thing going on with that. They had that big winter storm that caused flooding, and now they have a lot of ag destruction going on. You got that plus this trade war really hurts the Midwest. But we are growing crops that don't compete with soybeans and that, so it's going to be something to watch. The main ones I worry about is cattle prices, to tell you the truth, because they're reducing hogs could have some impact on that.
Now, we've talked about tariffs primarily as a negative thing. Is there any examples you have where tariffs are a positive thing?
Positive would be, back in the old days, basically it was a source of income. If you had an economy, a national economy, that'd be one. It is something to protect local businesses if you have a new business coming on. But it's also local if there's some unfair trade practices going on by the other economy that's doing something like dumping and all that. And so by doing that, you shield the impacts to your local economy so it doesn't get destroyed by that. And that's one of the things that happen. So it's mainly something that can be used for unfair trade practices.